welcome to the 20th Datacloud Global Congress in the south of France. Joining me now in Cannes is Olivier Micheli, CEO and President of Data4. And Olivier, welcome again to the south of France.
Thank you.
Not a very far trip for you,
No,
all the way
thank
from
you
Paris.
to welcome me in my country.
Well, yeah. How many Dataclouds have you been to?
Perhaps 4, 5, I don't remember exactly, perhaps 4, 5, yeah? 5?
Like 1/4 of all the editions. Take COVID away in the middle, that's plenty of them.
Exactly, but I like in Cannes, I like in Cannes.
Look, before we go into what you're doing, because you've got a huge, tremendous pipeline of investment coming, about $25 billion, 21.5 billion euros.
Very much, yeah.
Before we get into that, let's look into what's been happening since January in Europe. And in Europe also implies talking a little bit about the world, because everything is just intertwined at this stage. What's your temperature check of the industry 6 months into 2025?
Yeah, that's a good question, Joao. I think it's a very valid question because actually in the last 5-6 months, the world has changed a lot, and we won't make any geopolitical, discussions, but it creates a lot of uncertainty. And basically, the customers we are working with, basically they sign for contract for 10, 15 years, and they need some certainty. So basically, it creates a lot of uncertainty in the market. Some as well, big, large customers, tech firms, put on pause different developments they have across the globe, not only in Europe, but in Europe, Asia Pac, in the US. However, if we step back, I think it's the market drivers are very, very strong. I mean, we produce still more and more data. Every 3 years, we are doubling the number of data across the world. These data needs to be hosted in data centers. The business cloud is still very, the cash cow of the hyperscalers, and it's doubling every 3 years as well. And we still have generative AI, which is a big hope for the future. And when you sum these 3 different things, basically, the demand for the data center market is massive. So even if we have some negative, issues, I would say, during the first 5 months, from my perspective, the market drivers are very strong.
Yeah, but the negative part is always part of the journey anyway. It's
exactly,
and it makes it more exciting. Yeah, and that's how you evolve as well. Let's just look into sustainability. That's how you evolve, how you create new solutions. I mean, I was at your data center, Marcoussis, and I saw the algae system.
Yeah,
a problem led to something quite new. So there's also, we'll touch on that in a second. But I think one of the main things as well, I mean, we've had 1.2, 1.5 trillion US dollars being announced across the world for new data center projects. 500 billion we start getting in the US, over 200 billion in France alone. So you are part of those 200 billion as well. There's more in Asia, so there's plenty of money. But focusing on Europe, how do we ensure that Europe can stay ahead? And I guess in this case more the European Union can still stay ahead on the global stage against the US, against China. What are the main levers that the continent has when you try and fight these 2 bigger regions? And the upcoming ones as well, because you do have India, Brazil.
You're right, you're right. Actually, we are in competition. Let's look at the different continents. Europe, from my perspective, is in competition with the US. And if you, for example, you look generative AI, the training part, okay, the training part of generative AI goes where the power is available and where it's competitive, cheap, all right? And for the moment, it goes more in the US because power is available across the US around 1 to 3 years, where in a lot of markets in Europe, it's about 5-7 years, even more, 10 years. If you're in like Dublin or in Amsterdam.
I was just thinking about Ireland, because it does take 5 to 7 years to get the power.
Yeah, well, I heard this during the lunchtime, it's even 10 years. So,
10 years now.
So when you compare a lot of markets in Europe compared to the US, the power is much more a constraint, an issue in Europe. So basically, the workloads for training in generative AI flies in the US. However, Europe, you have 500 million of citizens. A lot of data needs to be, for the European citizens, needs to be hosted in Europe, as well for quality technical reason. The apps need as well to be hosted in Europe. So for inferencing, business cloud, and a lot of recreational services around gaming, social media, etc., needs to be hosted in Europe. And that's why as well the demand is very strong on the continent. And also the continent has a lot of, I would say, assets, positive things that basically that can put, that can roll out to absorb and develop the data centers across the continent.
I guess one of the critical issues, challenges in the industry, it is power, like you mentioned, for countries like that. Do you think, and the global usage of data center power is going to more than double up to 2030. So it's going to be 945 terawatts per hour kind of thing,
massive,
according to the International Energy Association agency.
Yeah, true.
Do you think this industry should actually be recognized as an electricity intensive industry? Or do you think that would actually hinder it a little bit because you're making a faster step towards becoming a utility? And then we know once you become a utility, more regulation kills innovation.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Well, by far, I mean, if you look at, so data center is competing with other sectors, like the industry that needs to be electrified, you have the mobility with cars, etc. So we're in competition with basically several other, but the data center is the one that is growing the most. And as you said, by 2030, it will be certainly the second sector across the globe in terms of power consumption. What we need to be very careful is it could be because you have so much development, and large development across all the different geographies across the globe, that it could become a regulated, as you said, a regulated basically business, where we want to avoid, of course. But that's a possibility. Yeah.
Okay. When we look into your pipeline, you have currently one of the largest capital commitments of any
True.
operator in the world. It's 21.5 billion euros, about 24, 25, 26 billion US dollars.
True.
How are you going to spend that money? I mean, we know a lot of the money will stay in France, about 15 billion will stay in France, and that was announced with Macron in Choose France a few weeks ago. But then you do have other markets that you're going into. You've got Milan, Madrid, Athens, Warsaw, maybe one more that I'm forgetting. I do like geography and numbers, but then I forget about them a lot of times. But how else are you going to spend that money, and how much more are you going to need? Because this is you're just starting. You're putting some like hundreds of megawatts and a couple of gigawatts on the ground, but this is just for the next 7-8 years.
Yeah.
There's going to be more. So tell us more.
No, for sure. It's a great question. So Data4, first of all, is the European player. The HQ is in France, but as you said, we're in 6 markets across the continent. We have 1.5 gigawatts gross power secured that we are currently rolling out. So out of these, let's say 20 billion euros of investment we have, already we had 10 billion in our business plan. And it was across France, but it was across all the other markets. And our plan, our strategy is to invest all our capital in our existing markets. Okay. The other 10 billion we have added, basically, is, as you said, rightly said, is allocated to France. And why? Is because France, and it's not because I'm French, I'm saying that, it's because France has a massive asset. It's the power availability. And it's low carbon emission power, as you said, based on nuclear. It's super competitive. If you compare the electron, the price, the cost of the electron in France, it's far cheaper than Italy or Germany, etc. So when you step back, you have a lot of power available, ready to be used, cheap.
As opposed to waiting 5, 7 years, 10 years.
Well, but the power is there. It's much more the distribution, which is a challenge. So that's why we have found, places where we can get the power quite rapidly. And I'm a true believer of the gigawatt campus. And that's why we have identified 1 gigawatt campus where we're going to allocate 10 billion of euros or 10 billion of extra euros. And then when you say 10 plus 10, you arrive to these 20 billion.
Yeah. I believe that's Paris 3. And is that Paris 3?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a second. I just want to ask you about IPOs. And this can be about Data4 or not Data4. Do you think it would ever make sense in a few years' time to do an IPO for the company? A top question on top of that would be, do you think we're going to see an IPO wave in the next 4 or 5 years in the sector? We've seen the M&A wave, which took a lot of people out of the public markets. But we will have a go public wave at some point?
Well, it's another fair question. It's always a balance, it goes from public to private, private to public. I think I believe we'll see more and more public, I would say, operations. And why? It's because the platforms, a lot of platforms are becoming very big. And so you have more and more limited, basically, investors that are able, basically, to invest in such large platform. And so one way, basically, to monetize this platform is to go public. So yes, I tend to believe that we'll see more and more. So is Data4, it's an option. It's an option that, but is it an option today? No, because we are in a very high development phase.
No, it wouldn't make sense now. It was more just
exactly,
like,
when it will be more stabilized and will be a platform of 20, 30 or more billion euros of market cap, then perhaps it will be relevant to go public. We'll see. We have time.
No, I'm just asking because it's something that's starting to happen more in Asia. We are seeing some more people from Singapore, Hong Kong, and even China talking about it and doing it. Some of them are doing it. So it begs the question of, is the wave going to start coming towards the West as well at some point? So it was all that.
It's possible. I don't have any crystal ball, but I think no. But
but for what you're doing now, it makes no sense because you need the freedom to go and build.
Yeah, exactly, and you need capital basically. And when you're listed, it's always complex to raise money.
No.
When you're listed, to raise money to invest in such large development. So I think it's good to be private today. And as well, we are recycling our capital, as you know. So we have a kind of right model where we develop, it's stabilized, we get the money out of these stabilized assets to fund the growth, and we recycle our capital. So until we can continue to do that, there is no rush to be change. Public or to change, exactly.
No, makes total sense. $10 billion for Paris 3. So what is the timeline, how are you going to spend it, and what technology are you going to be spending it on? How are you going to make this campus AI ready? And what's going to be the capacity? Is it a gigawatts or?
Oh, you mean Power 3? No, Power 3 it's another 200. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. All right, you have too many projects going on, right? Let's step back.
Okay. So let me explain you because it's very interesting. In Paris South, we are building a hub, a 500 megawatt hub, where we have Paris 1, where we have 250, which is pretty much completely full. And we have Paris 3, which is just 3 kilometers away, which is basically an extension of our Paris 1. And together, it's 250, 500.
Okay.
And it's the largest digital hub in France and one of the largest in Europe, with a 360 degrees approach in terms of services, where we have cloud, public, private, and trusted cloud, as well mixed with AI solutions in Paris 3.
Okay.
And that's what we are aiming to develop. And then we have our gigawatt project in the north of France, where we want to use that to basically serve the French market, but not only the French market, the whole European market.
Okay. What's the timeline for both projects? So Paris 3 and the north of France?
Paris 3 now, actually. Well, now, yesterday, because we are
You're building it?
Oh, yeah. We are going fast.
When are you opening? When are you opening?
27 we'll have the power.
It's coming fast.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's 9 quarters, kind of.
Yeah.
We'll go fast.
and the other one, the gigawatt project in northern France, as well, we have the land. We're going to have the permits. We need to get the power, but I think it will be as well by 28 and onwards. But it's a gigawatt project. So it's a 10 years development. It's not a 2 years development. We need to be patient as well.
Yeah. And I guess, how do you bring the sustainability message into all this? Because building all this caters again to a lot of power. There might be some water usage. I don't know. How do you keep it green? How do you keep it sustainable? How do you merge technology with sustainability?
No, it's a very fair point, and that's something we need. That's a theme. It is very important across the industry. At Data4, we have our let's say, strategic roadmap is built around 3 pillars, and one of the 3 pillars, it's sustainability. And so we have a full innovation program around sustainability, limited our impact on the environment. You talk about the algae. But that's in Paris 1, but that's real, it's massive. When you think about it, we have, we are doing a proof of concept in Paris 1, where we have farm of algae that we are heating with one data center. And actually every 8 hours the algae are doubling. And it's accelerated by the process through thanks to the heat. Okay? If it's working well, basically the plan is to put like walls of algae across the entire campus, because in terms of usage, you have plenty of usage, cosmetic, biofuel, etc. So that's the example. In Paris 3, all the heat from the campus will be transferred to a district, an eco district with 600 households, where actually will be heated by the campus. So that's examples, but that's very tangible examples of what we do, whatever we can basically to reduce our impact on the environment, and as well use the energy which is not going into the atmosphere, use this energy, valuable energy, for different usage, and we're going to continue to do that because obviously this is something that I know the sector is accused. And so that's important that we show that we're doing our utmost to reduce our impact.
I think the Argus system, and I'm not saying that because you're here, but I do think it's one of the most fascinating projects I've seen in terms of heat reuse in a data center.
Thank you very much.
It's because of the applications. It's because of the applications they can have as well.
Yeah.
And the fact that 1 square meter can take up to the same amount of CO2 that's 20 trees take.
Exactly.
I mean, some people, we've published the story and we've had some critics about it, but some people might say that we're killing forests and also it's better to just reforest something. The fact is, we have cities that are built. We're not going to knock down a building to build a forest, but we can embed this into the buildings as well. Because we're starting with data centers, we can go to hospitals, you can go into train stations, airports, you can go into so many different applications. So
no, for sure.
It's a proof of concept on the rooftop of a data center, but the applications are
and
tremendous.
You know what, Joao, as well, we tend to say Europe is not innovating enough.
Yeah.
Actually, you have a consortium where you have Data4. It's basically we put
universities and also.
You have a university, a very strong French university, plus as well a startup from Austria, and the three of us were working together basically to put this model into a reality. And as you said, that can be expanded to plenty of different sectors.
Yeah. And also the proof of concept was not expensive. So I can imagine that that's developed. So once it starts like scaling, the price will come down as well.
Yeah, no,
so
for sure.
The application is going to be quite tremendous.
And there is a market for the algae. A very interesting market
the follow-up
for the
model, Could that become a new revenue stream for you at some point?
At least it will amortize the investment made into the wall of algae. So, but there is a market, which is good.
Before I let you go, one topic that I should maybe have brought it up earlier, sovereignty. That's become a huge topic in Europe. How is what Data4 is using right now in Europe going to help this digital sovereignty, data nationalism movement that we're feeling across, not just the continent, but across the globe, to be honest? And how do you think this is going to impact data center development anyway, even outside of Data4? Because data doesn't stop when it gets to the border. So how do we live in a world that's more and more connected? We are building more and more walls.
Well, it's a fair question. I mean, sovereignty. It's a topic that could take almost half a day to discuss because you have so many angles you can cover this topic. But let's say from a pure digital infrastructure perspective, I think it's very important that Europe has the best data center infrastructure across the continent, and not only in one market but across the different markets. It's important that as well the data from the European citizens are hosted in Europe. And I had a tough discussion with one US tech giant that told me, why we put our data there? Power is expensive, it's complex, we have taxes and so on and so on. And well, I mean, my answer is this is the data, of the European citizens. So it's very important that we keep them in the continent. And second, it's super important as well that these data rely on assets that are, very robust, always available, and we don't depend on another continent or another jurisdictions. I think we will lose our autonomy and we will lose our sovereignty. So at Data4, it's not like we are nationalisms or whatsoever. No,
it's
not at all. But
no.
We are, and in the entire company, is very motivated to build these state-of-the-art data centers and infrastructure across the continent to allow the companies, to allow the administration, citizens to host their data in the best areas, best data centers.
Okay. Well, final question before we get into drinks, because it's coming up to the time now, 1 o'clock. How would you describe this industry in 2025 in one word?
I would say very dynamic. And I would say 6 months ago, a little bit hysteric, a little bit crazy, but
in a good way.
Yeah, well, too many things coming around and too many actors, etc. So it's a little bit of hysteria, and because as well you had some, market impacts, as we discussed at the beginning,
especially in January.
Yeah, now it's becoming more quiet. Well, not more quiet. Sorry.
Stabilized.
Stabilized. Thank you very much for your English.
It's not my first
So
language either.
and we're becoming like a dynamic,
Yeah.
I would say, sector, and which is, I think, very good.
It's maturing.
Maturing.
Yeah, the conversations are maturing. as well.
Perhaps, yeah, a bit.
Olivier Micheli, CEO and President of Data4, thank you so much for talking to me. As for your home, thank you for watching, and do check our website and news channels for the latest digital infrastructure global news. At the Tech Capital, you lead, we report. Bye for now.